In this part of the lesson, we're going to learn about the summing matrix. Now, I would say that the underlying idea of this is very simple, but kind of getting your head around all the terminology and different steps is kind of hard. So let me just begin by showing you what it is we're trying to do, okay? What we're trying to do here is something very simple. We want to see if we can add the rows and if we can add the columns. So let's begin by talking about adding the rows of something. So let's look at this one right here. If I said to you, can you give me a matrix that adds the rows of these? And you'd say, yeah, that's pretty easy. All you'd have to do is create a 2 by 1 matrix and go 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 5 is 8. And then 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 10 is 19. And just like that, we get our answer, 8, 19. All we've done is summed the rows. That's it. But now what we want to talk about is the process that enables us to get this matrix, okay? In other words, what is our matrix multiplication that's going to allow for this to happen? Okay, and this is where the summing matrix idea comes into play. So would you agree with me that the underlying idea here is pretty simple? We're just adding the rows. But now let's kind of get lost in the weeds for a bit. Okay, a summing matrix is a row or column matrix where all elements are 1. To add the rows, so that's what we've just done here, to add the rows of an m by n matrix. M by n just means like any amount of rows, any amount of columns. So an m by n matrix, a matrix of any size. Post multiply. What does post multiply mean? Can you write above the word post? After. Because that's what it means, to multiply after. By a n by 1 summing matrix. Now, n by 1, so take note of this. We're taking this n, and that goes there, and this is going to be a 1 here. Now, this means it can have as many rows as it needs to, the same amount of rows as it has there, but only 1 column. So that means it's going to be a column matrix. If we think about what this would look like, if I drew myself a little matrix here, I'm saying it can have as many rows as it wants, but only 1 column. So it's going to be a column matrix. All right, let's see this in action, and hopefully it will make a bit more sense as we go on. This is definitely a lesson where you have to watch for a bit in order for it all to make sense. So it says, consider matrix A below. Here is matrix A. Matrix A is a 2 by 3 matrix. Matrix A is a 2 by 3 matrix. It is 2 rows, 3 columns. To add the elements in the rows of matrix A, we need to post multiply by a 3 by 1 summing matrix. So notice we've got a 1 here because that's what our rule tells us. And then n is the same as that n. So to 3 is because we've got a 3 there. So let's see how this works. First, take note. Remember we said the word post means after. And that's because, as you can see over here, it's after this matrix here. So this is matrix A. We're multiplying it afterwards. It's the second thing here. It's not before, it's after. Not before, after. Let's see what happens when we do this. Let's see what happens when we multiply this by this. What's going to happen here? So let's come over here. I'll grab a pen. Okay. Remember the way that matrix multiplication works is you multiply the row by the column. We also know what the order of this thing is going to be. So even before we start this, we know what the order of our product is going to be. If this is 3 by 2, and this is, this is 2 by 3, sorry. 2 rows, 3 columns, and this is 3 by 1, we know that our answer is going to be 2 by 1. 2 by 1. So that means we're going to have 2 rows and 1 column. Okay, so let's begin. We're going to go 1 times 1. 1 times 1. 2 times 1. So plus 2 times 1. Plus 5 times 1. 5 times 1. And then we go to our second row now. So now we're going to go this by that. So this is going to be 6 times 1. 6 times 1. Plus 3 times 1. 3 times 1. Plus 10 times 1. 10 times 1. Okay, what's that going to be? It's going to be 1 plus 2 plus 5, which is 6 plus 3 plus 10. Close that off. So this is going to be 8, and this is going to be 19. Do you see all we have done is gone 1 plus 2 plus 5 is 8. 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 10 is 19. this just allows us to sum the rows together. That's all we've done. So that is what it is. Can we, before we move on, just appreciate that this right here, this thing right here is our summing matrix. So this matrix right here allows us to sum the rows. So let's come back to our definition here. To add the rows of an m by n matrix post-multiply, meaning multiply after it, by an n by 1 summing matrix. And this is a column matrix. So if you ever want to sum the rows of something, you're going to utilize a summing matrix, and it's going to be in the form of a column. All right, let's take a break here. And then the next thing we'll talk about is summing columns together.